Hello my lovely bookish friends, and welcome back to another video, and welcome to this October wrap-up. As I always say, can you believe that here we are in November? Time just absolutely seems to be flying by. However, I read some really great books this October, so let us get to what I read.
First up, we have the graphic novel Hooky. This follows twin witches, Dorian and Danny, who miss their bus to a magical school and end up wrapped up in an ancient prophecy. It features dragons, evil cats, and just all sorts of magical creatures, and it's just an absolute delight to read. I actually finished this series in October, reading volume 2 and also the final volume, volume 3, and I just loved every minute of it. The storyline is just so much fun, and it's just pure magical enjoyment that you can just... and anyone can enjoy it, no matter what age you are. It's just so much fun, and the actual graphic novel style is just so cute and colourful. I highly recommend this if you're looking for a magical graphic novel to add to your TBR. After this, I went down a bit of a gothic classic rabbit hole. Emerin Publishing, which is the publisher that my own 2 novels are published with, recently released their gothic classic collection, and they're absolutely beautiful, and so I read pretty much all the new ones that were released. So the first being The Picture of Dorian Gray. This follows Dorian Gray, who is this young, beautiful guy who gets horrifically led astray in, just the absolute worst possible way, and ends up making this terrible vow where he will forever remain young, whilst the portrait of him faces the ugliness of his sins. And this was the first time I've ever read this novel. I have heard of it, but I've never actually read it, and it was just so good. I was hooked in, and honestly I had no idea where it was going or how it would all end. All I knew beforehand, like going into this book, was about the picture and how it took the old age and ugliness from the guy. That's all kind of I knew, but literally I knew it as vaguely as I just said it. So everything that happened was just so unexpected, and it was just masterfully written. It was really great. I loved it. And then another masterpiece that I read in October was Dracula. Now this follows Jonathan Harker, who ends up getting mixed up with the Count Dracula, who is a vampire. And now this book is just brilliant. It is one of my new favourite classics. It's so intense, and what I knew about Count Dracula kind of from pop culture and recent media is quite a lot different in the books. Like, he's not really that sympathetic of a character, he's a proper bad guy, whereas Van Helsing is like the sweetest and nicest guy, and Harker, who's portrayed as the kind of, I don't know, he's not always portrayed well, he's also just a really nice guy, and Minna is just a great female character. She's so strong and knows her own mind, and it's just, I was absolutely in awe of this book. I just absolutely fell in love with it. It's incredible, and I think it's a classic that every classic fan should try and give it a read. Last for the classics, I also read Frankenstein. Now this follows Victor Frankenstein, who becomes obsessed with life and creating his own being, and which he does, and he creates this creature, and just things go tragically downhill from there. And again, this book was incredible. I had a really great reading month actually. Frankenstein is just so dramatic, and his dramaticness would actually be funny if the story wasn't just so tragic, and it's quite miserable really, but the atmosphere and the gothic elements just make it the perfect read for the spooky season, so I'm really glad that I actually was able to read that one. Returning to graphic novels, we have the 3rd volume in the Sad Ghost Club. This follows a group of lonely ghosts who form a club where they meet up and kind of support each other. I adore this series. The main theme is actually about mental health, so these ghosts are all struggling with different things, and each time we see how they cope and grow together, and there's just something about this series that always makes me, just feel something, and somehow I always find myself, when I finish the volume, I just sort of sit there and think, I needed that, I needed to hear that, or there's just something about this series that feels very comforting, and it's just a really lovely graphic novel. lastly is a book that I have started but have not yet finished, and it is Divine Rivals. This is about Iris, who lives in this kind of, I want to say World War One inspired world, but there are like gods at war with each other, and her brother's been called up to war and he's gone missing. So she starts writing writing him letters with this typewriter and then just leaving them under the wardrobe, because she knows she hasn't actually got her own address for him, she doesn't know where to send them to, so just leaves them under their shared wardrobe. But then they start to disappear, and one day she receives a letter back, only it's not from her brother, and then the story kind of goes off from there. That is not perhaps the best explanation, but it does kind of cover the basics of the book. I haven't finished it yet, so I can't really go into detail about my feelings on it, but I am enjoying it so far. It is a very popular book, and I can see why it's popular. It is beautifully written, and the characters are just wonderful, and it feels very real, and I'm really intrigued to see where it will go, and I will give my final thoughts on that when I eventually finish it.
So that was it. That was all the books that I read in October, and honestly I am so happy with the books that I read, especially that I was able to read so many of the spooky gothic classics that just are so great to read this time of year. And Dracula was amazing. I feel like I put that book off. I feel like I just got intimidated by it, but it's so easy to read. It's a really great classic, and yeah, just reading all those gothic classics really got me in the mood for Halloween and the spooky season. And yeah, so that is it for this monthly wrap up. What were your favourite books that you read in October? Please put them down below in the comments, and it's always great to see what people are reading and what you guys are up to. And maybe I'll find a new book to add to my own TBR. Not that I need any more, but you know, you can never have too many books. So that brings us to the end of this video. I hope you enjoyed it, and if you did, please consider liking and subscribing, as I have a lot more bookish content to come. Until next time, my lovely bookish friends, bye!